welcome back to another episode of the Algorhythm podcast.
Welcome.
I think it's I legit think it's episode 25. It's
Damn,
either 25 or 26, I think.
Mm.
I had someone, I don't know if I told you guys this, but we talked about that one episode, like we couldn't remember what episode number it was.
Mm-hmm.
Some fucking old guy commented and said, "How do you not know what episode it is in your podcast? Why does it matter?"
Relax.
Why does it matter?
Yeah.
I think it's episode 25.
I can't remember what movie it is, but like the dude's like super annoyed, and the guy asks him a question. He's like, "How many times have you peed today, bro?"
Yeah. How was your guys' 4th of July?
It was cool.
Good.
I mean,
It rained.
yeah,
So that like ruined.
Rain like crazy.
Yeah.
we always go to my sister. She lives right on Main Street, so
I seen you guys out during the parade. Actually, we were coming behind old Pizza Hut, and you were chilling out in the grass and shit.
Yeah, so like we ended up just sitting out in the rain the whole time. We had a tent set up, so we just sat under and chilled. And then I went to my buddy Ty's and after the rain and let off fireworks over there. But then fireworks got canceled in Gas City, and then we ended up we were right beside each other at the fireworks.
You guys did?
So,
Mm-hmm. Elena walked right over to me, and Katie looked at her and was like, "Hi, what's your name?" And I was like,
That's Helena.
"That's Elena." And then you came, and I was like,
Yeah.
"That's Garrett."
Yeah.
So
We just stayed home,
Yeah.
cooked. Actually, it's crazy because you can walk right out on the front porch and watch the
See it all,
fireworks. Yeah, they lit them like back further this year, I think.
It was
They were,
like farther down towards it was like back behind the closest softball diamond to Main
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah,
It was weird.
because usually you can go out into the backyard right there and watch them that way,
Yeah.
but they were
They were more
this
this way,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
They did their thing again this year. There was
Really?
kind of like a rival between
Marion and Gas
Gas
City,
City, and they
I appreciate everything the mayor is doing for
Yeah.
Marion right now,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
the fireworks, that's a
Yeah.
different.
they hold
There's
the title
levels.
every year.
There's
bro.
levels.
They showed their ass this year too. Like the finale was crazy.
Yeah, there's levels.
Yeah.
The finale literally shook this house.
oh my gosh,
It shook the house.
Remy was
Oh,
terrified.
yeah.
As soon as it started going off, she was like, "Mommy, it's so bright."
Mila's like trying to act tough, but she's still scared. She's like holding me like this, like looking at him. She's like,
I can't imagine.
"Purple, Dad." Like,
Yeah, I can't
freaking
imagine
out.
what it was like down here because I felt that shit in my chest
Oh my
and ear.
gosh,
It was
Like,
loud.
my
And
head was.
we were
rocking.
so close to him where we were sitting that
Yeah.
like it was hurting my eyes.
Oh
bro.
yeah.
Jeez.
it
I
was
started
hurting
going
my
like
eyes.
this, and
Yeah.
Isaac was like, "You have to watch them," and I was like,
Yeah.
"I can't even see."
It's almost like Gas City postponed it for a day. They're like, you know what?
Yeah.
He made the call. He was like,
Yeah.
bring another truck
Yeah,
in.
Bring the truckloads in, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it. It was
Yeah.
really good.
It was.
All right. Enough about the 4th and happy shit. Today's episode is
Let's
about
get sad.
Jim Jones, not Ball and Jim Jones.
Yeah, not from the Diplomats.
Yeah, not from the Diplomats. Not not that Jim Jones. We're talking about Jim Jones, the infamous cult leader of the People's Temple, and the leader of Jonestown.
Mhm.
And if you don't know this story, it's a wild one. I talked to you
Mhm.
on one of these episodes, and I was like, you ever heard the phrase, don't drink the Kool-Aid?
I was trying to
And you were
remember
like-
what episode you said that because
Yeah.
I remember you saying it.
Yeah, and I was like, I think I cut it out. I think I cut it
Okay.
out because
Yeah.
we went on a ramble
Yeah.
during that episode. I was like,
Well-
we have to do Jim Jones.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is where don't drink the Kool-Aid's from.
Okay.
And this is why. It's not actually Kool-Aid. What was it called?
Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flavor Aid.
I never got that out of the documentary, but they didn't ever call it Kool-Aid or anything.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yep. 911
I don't know. I saw different counts.
or 909.
It's around 900.
Yeah.
I've seen like 903.
Over 900 people committed suicide. Was it? So over 900 people died.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, I can't remember the amount that committed suicide.
I don't remember. I just watched something earlier about it, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about these people died on a small island of Guyana. Was it?
It's not
It's not an island. It's in like Africa.
They were just
No,
in the
it's
jungle.
it's in South America.
Yeah.
South America.
Yeah.
Yeah, where a plane would fly over and you just see 900 bodies laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and some I guess like there were the followers, obviously brainwashed to end up doing this, and a lot of them were actually forced to drink.
Mhm.
So there were people that followed them to the end and drank it willingly, but there were a lot that
We're like, no, what?
yeah.
Like, there has to be another way.
Yeah.
We're not doing this. And he was like, dry it up. You're dying.
Yeah, originally this was considered mass suicide, but they later on ruled it as a mass murder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rightfully so. He led the People's Temple, a church with thousands of followers. He said he represented God, hope, and love. He led his temple in California, and the population was mostly African American, which I found that kind of. I didn't find it weird, but like he led the majority of African Americans, but all of the leaders in his group were white. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, you just got to kind of look at what was going on at that time too. There's a
Vietnam.
lot of racism, a lot of Vietnam. There's civil rights stuff going on in America. So you got this guy preaching about like the things that he preached about: God, love,
Socialism.
Socialism, making everything fair, and then eventually taking him down to Guyana to make this
society.
Yeah, this society where everything, all that stuff's not going to be a part of it now.
Right.
He's selling them, something that
Selling
looks
them,
good.
definitely trying to sell them. He was selling them paradise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Multiracial and multi-generational with a charismatic leader. A dream come true for most after the division that Vietnam War caused, especially in terms of racism. It was, quote unquote, exciting to the followers to have a space to go that allowed everyone.
Which that was like his goal. Even when he started out here in Indianapolis, and his goal was to like be all inclusive. Like everybody came to him and they were a part of him, and having all the different generations and races and stuff like that was like a huge deal for everybody who was there.
Yeah.
And he fed off of that.
He was born in 1931 in Indiana, which, I mean, why do all the fucks come from Indiana, dude?
I had no idea. It was like one of those things like with Baby Reindeer. I didn't know that he played himself until after I watched it. I didn't know that he was from Indiana until after I watched it. And I was like, fuck, again.
From a small town of Cree, which is close to Lynn. Didn't we say it was Lynn, Indiana?
I think that's what you said.
Yeah. His name is James Warren Jones, born in 1931. He was of Irish and Welsh descent. He and his mother both claim to also have some Cherokee ancestry, but there is no evidence of this. He looks Indian as shit.
Yeah. He looks like
that's like an Indiana thing too. Like everybody says they have Indian in them. Yeah, my grandpa has some Indian in him.
My grandma is 1/4 Cherokee. Yeah. I swear to God.
Everybody in Indiana says that.
Jones's father was disabled in World War I. He was a disabled World War I veteran who suffered from severe breathing difficulties due to injuries which he sustained in a chemical weapons attack. I didn't know that.
Me neither.
He tried to augment his income by occasionally working on neighborhood road repair projects because the military pension he earned due to his wounds was insufficient to support his family. His father's illness led to financial difficulties, which in turn resulted in intense marital problems between the Jones parents. Fucked up kids always come from split households. Always. In 1934, in the midst of the Great Depression, the Jones family was evicted from their home for failure to make mortgage payments. The relatives purchased a shack for them to live at the nearby town of Lynn. Yeah, it was Lynn. The new home where Jones grew up lacked plumbing and electricity. In Lynn, the family attempted to earn an income through farming, but again met with failure when Jones' father's health further deteriorated. The family often lacked adequate food and relied on financial support from their extended family. They sometimes resorted to foraging in the nearby forest and fields to supplement their diet. So all of that right there was like they resorted to foraging in forests and fields. That was like grooming him. Mm-hmm. Like in this documentary that I watched, it said he was infatuated with death as a young kid. So like red flags. Yeah. Where was I at on this other one?
He was a young Dexter and shit.
Yeah. After the Vietnam War, his goal was to create a new society, a space for over 1,000 people. He grew up like Pentecostal.
I think so.
Yeah, it was Pentecostal. In 1974, Jim Jones decided to build Jonestown in the South American jungle, Guyana. It was completely free to the people who followed Jim Jones to Jonestown. Free housing, free food, free medical care.
Which, that's wild. It's like in the middle of the jungle. I mean, like hundreds of miles away from like the main town of Georgetown. Mm-hmm. And everything was just free. All they had to do was go with him. Yeah. So I'm sure to those people, they were like, yeah.
Yeah, until they realized, they're going to be working 20 hours a day.
Right.
Sleep 2 hours a day.
Right.
And
he took their passports.
And he took their passports.
So they couldn't leave.
Yeah. It's crazy how like all these like cult things, they always start out with like love and
paradise.
Just turn into a straight like power dynamic.
Yeah.
Look at Scientology.
Yeah, psycho shit.
Scientology was the same thing. It was like, come join us.
Yeah.
We have to do a Scientology episode.
Yes.
Yeah. They built this life without Jim Jones being present for the first few years. The great utopia, the better life is what they called it. Not to be interfered with the outside life. In 1977, when Jim Jones showed up because of the press who were questioning him and his operation, everything changed. Yeah, this dude, he started getting fucking weird.
Which I didn't know he was gone for like the first couple years of that operation, like becoming a thing. I didn't know that he wasn't like directly involved, which is why they were like kind of just like vibing for a little bit until he showed up, and then everything was like.
That kind of seems to be like a common theme with him too. Like any of the hard stuff that everybody else was doing, he was never a part of. Like even to the end, like he didn't end up drinking the Kool-Aid.
No.
He ends up killing himself,
shooting himself.
Like, or he had somebody else shoot him. He didn't even shoot himself.
Yeah.
Yes, I watched a documentary before I came over here on A&E, and it's about the women of Jonestown and like the 4 main women who were like his right hand, which was his wife, his mistress, and then 2 other women.
The Sharon chick's one of them.
Yeah. And yeah, he didn't drink the Kool-Aid. His like main little I think her name was Anne, something like that. Literally shot him in the head and then went and killed herself. Yeah. So he didn't even drink it. That was crazy.
After all that.
People people gravitated towards this guy. The way he talked, it's so fucking weird that when they found his body, when they found him dead, all of his recordings were right beside him. Literally. It's like he wanted that.
Yeah.
Like he wanted people to listen to him after his death. And if you listen to him speak, it's trancy. Like it is trancy.
It is freaky.
Yeah, it's trancy. Like talk about, are you prepared to kill your child? Yeah. That's...
And he was like really paranoid and shit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, drugs would do that to you. Yep. He was also an alcoholic.
Yeah, because when he came to Jonestown, he was already hooked on drugs.
Yeah. He would beat his followers, abuse them, belittle them, drug them for weeks or months at a time in a dorm. He was power hungry. As things started to unravel, it was starting to spread that it was all a lie to get people to follow him and be secluded. Over the next year, things started to turn in a really bad direction. What they were told and what was actually happening were 2 different stories. It was a work camp, and I quote, a real hellish experience. People were being tortured, starved, held against their will. Their wheel. He took people's passports, and they had to ask permission to leave to go to the States again. They had to ask for approval, which if you asked to leave, you would just get beat up.
Yeah, he was like, "Are you insane? Why do you want to leave?" And they'd be like, "Oh, well, like I have family back in the States. I just want to go visit." And he was like, "No, you're not doing that."
So I watched a documentary, and I can't remember this lady's name, but she had wrote a letter, and she was going to sneak it and mail it somehow. And she was best friends with this other girl, and she was telling her about it. And when she got done writing the letter, she was going to mail it the next day, and the girl... Jim Jones held a meeting with the entire followers, and the girl's sitting there, and all of a sudden Jim Jones pulls out a piece of paper and he starts reading her letter to everyone. And come to find out, the girl's best friend turned her letter in. Yeah.
What a bitch.
And she ended up getting beaten in front of everybody. Like
crazy.
Get
everybody there and then use the fear.
Can you imagine what she was going through once, you don't know what the meeting's about, and all of a sudden he starts reading this letter, and you know that's what you wrote. Yeah.
Oof.
Crazy, man.
Oof.
We didn't really talk much about his practices, his miracle healing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
what?
They showed video of that stuff. That was crazy. The chick had the cast on. Did you see the one where the chick had the cast on?
And she just starts running through the
He's like, this leg was broken yesterday. And she's like,
now run.
He's like, now run.
So a couple of different things. He did this a couple of different ways. One, it would be staged.
Yeah.
He would have his followers,
his
secretaries do this. Another time when this happened, this lady couldn't walk. Come to find out, they drugged her the night before.
Right.
Okay, and she woke up with the cast on. and they explained to her like, you were in a really bad accident, you broke your leg, but nothing happened.
Nothing really had happened.
And then they did the whole, oh, you're gonna walk today, blah blah blah. Blah. Chick just runs through the church,
and they're all like,
freaking out,
losing
out. It is insane. Insane.
Yeah, he really had people believing that like he was God. Like, I will make this person in a wheelchair walk right now, and they're all like, okay, do it.
I just don't think like stuff like this ever happens again. Like, ever since like the internet and shit, like all the information.
Well, yeah, because we also learn from our mistakes. Too. Like this is, it's not something to laugh about.
It happened a lot back then, though. Like, a lot. There were so many like cults and like people
Manson.
Yeah,
it's
all that shit.
But about Manson?
Yeah, you gotta. That's a whole episode. That could be a 2-parter. Right there.
Oh yeah, between the Project
MK
Ultra, and then him slaying Sharon Stone.
Yeah,
Sharon Stone was a huge actress.
Okay.
In the 70s or 60s, and
was it Sharon Stone? Was it? I don't know.
Am I tripping?
I don't know. I might be.
Google that right now because I don't.
We'll figure it out.
Google right now because I don't. It's
what am I looking up?
What actress did Charles Manson kill? Because if I could be, I have that completely wrong. I think
Sharon Stone's still alive.
No, it's
Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate. Okay, you can't crucify me. You can't crucify me. You looked at me and said, "Is that Sharon Stone?" I was like,
I don't know.
Oh no.
You ever seen Alpha Dog? It's got Justin Timberlake in it. So the mom of the kid, that's Sharon Stone. Yeah. So that's why I was like, it wasn't.
Dude, the end of that movie, where they have her set up doing that interview, that always freaked me out.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You ever seen Alpha Dog?
Actress she is.
That movie fucked with.
Well, it's sad too because it's based on a true story. So.
The sad ones are always based on true stories.
Emil Hirsch. You gotta watch Alpha Dog.
Okay.
You'll cry your eyes out, but it's a good ass movie. Justin Timberlake's in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. That dude's on a fucking bender right now. Justin Timberlake. Have you seen anything about that?
Yeah, him getting arrested.
Oh my god! And they're doing a concert a day later.
Yeah.
He got arrested. He got DUI.
Oh,
dude zooted out of his mind.
Yeah.
Like his mugshot is like
he's insane.
His mugshot is like viral right now.
Oh, no.
And he's gone.
Yeah.
Well, he does a concert a year later, and he walks out. JT just dancing and fucking.
You said a day later.
Shit.
A day
later.
You said
not
year.
a year.
A day later.
I was like, oh.
He walks out. He's doing the JT dancing and shit. He's going crazy. And you look at his eyes. He's still fucked up. Gone, dude. Get that man some help.
Yeah, no shit.
Jesus. Okay, back on Jonestown.
Oof.
It's okay to get
rabbit hole a little bit. That's all right.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, a plan was made. This is the most wild thing I think about. Outside of the kids dying, that's the saddest part. This is the most wild shit about this whole thing. A plan was made with Congressman Leo Ryan of California. They met at JFK Airport with journalists, reporters, and the congressman to go to Guyana to see what the Americans in the jungle were doing. I watched an interview with the congressman's assistant, and she said she was pleading with him to not go.
Yeah.
You know, she knew something bad was going to happen. Well, before he went, she made him give her his will because she knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
So she was able to get his will before he died.
That's crazy. She's like one of the only ones that survived too.
Yeah.
Out of all
that Jackie?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say her last name.
The shootout. How do you survive that?
Yeah.
She played dead.
Just got lucky.
We'll get to that, but yeah, she literally said, "I played dead."
Yeah, that whole shootout situation was whack.
Yeah, because I don't think she ran like into the jungle.
She hid behind the freaking tire of the plane.
She played dead, and they came up and shot her point blank range, and she survived.
That's wild. Man.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, they double tapped him and shit at the end.
Yeah. The reporters said it all felt fake and wanted to check it out for themselves. It was a scary experience, many of them said. Georgetown, Guyana, 140 miles from Jonestown, is where they flew into. They were threatened from Jonestown to stay away. They ended up being stranded for 3 days in Georgetown with no real plans while waiting to get closer to Jonestown. A small plane was available to get them closer to Jonestown. It's something I want to say, if they're warning you to stay the fuck away, you need to either be going in with some
strapped up.
Yeah,
with
I mean, they
army?
literally just walked in with like their pad and paper.
That's what I'm thinking.
Cameras.
How do they even let you got a congressman? It's one thing if it's just like a small group of like just regular citizens.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing is like the congressman, in which I mean rightfully so. I mean anybody in their right mind who kills a congressman is out of their fucking mind.
Right.
The congressman said, nobody worry, you're protected by the seal of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And when the Congress, when we'll get into when they get there, when the congressman told one of the civilians that they're in Jonestown, the civilian looked at him like, you have no
There's nothing
idea
out
Yeah.
here.
who you're fucking with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea who, because they were pleading with him, like, take us home. They were like
Yeah.
handing him letters and shit like that. And
Yeah.
he was like, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't seen nothing.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, what's out there from stopping them from doing whatever they fucking want, dude? It's 900 versus what was it? Like
I think there was a group
10
of, like,
people or
yeah.
something, 15.
And they were fighting over who got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, on
Like-
the plane. They were like, no, I want to go.
Yeah.
No, I want to go die.
Just to get there, just to, like, I think see it with their own eyes and take notes, like, straight from the place. But
It makes you think, like, why wasn't somebody? It just kind of shows like how
things have changed.
laid
Malpractice.
back things were back then. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
That
ain't no way fucking Ted Cruz is getting on a plane
fuck.
and
No
going and
way.
like ain't no way. Dude's taking
He's gonna have.
A whole army of
yeah.
them.
I mean,
They're gonna be strapped up like the Navy, bro.
crazy. I don't even know where I was at.
A small plane became available to them.
Yeah, a small plane was available to get them closer to Jonestown. They started fighting with each other over who would get on the plane to go to Jonestown. Once the plane was loaded with the people going, they found out the airstrip was closed. People's Temple had closed it to keep the congressman out. They ended up landing in a nearby town that was close enough to Jonestown. Jim Jones warned his people to keep everyone out of their territory. He knew that they were coming to arrest him and capture his followers.
Yeah.
Which he knew he was in some shit.
Yeah,
'Cause
he called everybody to the pavilion and was like, this is what's happening. Nobody gets in. He was like, I need every single one of you on board. Nobody gets in.
Yeah.
Unless, like, we have eyes on them.
Yep.
Which is whack.
Yeah. When they finally got to Jonestown, they were taken on a tour. I quote, it was impressive there was a child art center and a medical center. There was no sign of Jim Jones, though. That night, a show was put on, singing, dancing, entertaining, and at the end, they asked Congressman Ryan to go on the stage, and he did. He made a remark about how the little town seemed happy, and they started clapping and didn't stop until Ryan left the stage. Suddenly, Jim Jones showed up.
Which, did you guys watch any of that? Did you see any of that anywhere? Where he ended up, like, going up to the stage, and all of the journalists and stuff that were with him, they were like, we cannot believe he even went up there. Like, they were
Right.
shocked that he said yes. And then when he got up there, he was kind of like congratulating all of them on, like, their success on building what they had. And he was like, you guys all seem pretty happy. And then they went nuts, like ballistic nuts, like screaming and clapping and crying and all this stuff. And they didn't stop until he,
Just got off.
like, they didn't give him any other opportunities to say anything.
Yeah.
Like, they just wanted the congratulations and then
Yeah.
cut him off.
I mean,
and then all of a sudden,
they
Jim
were
Jones-
conditioned to do all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
The-
just appeared.
Yeah, the journalist started asking Jim questions, and he never answered anything directly. He was sweating, agitated, and on the edge of his seat. It was disturbing, someone said. He clearly was not coherent half the time. He was not the same leader that he was in America. He was exhibiting paranoid feelings about his many enemies. Drugs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs.
Yeah.
Jim Jones said the ex-members were out to get him. Don Harris, who was an NBC reporter, was walking the edge of the pavilion after the performance when two people had independently slipped him notes. This was crazy.
This was like the turning point.
Yeah, this
They
was
were like,
when
okay.
shit hit the fan.
Right.
It further proved that people were being held against their will. I remember one guy that slipped a note, that slipped one of the reporters a note. He was like, because you couldn't pass notes there.
Right.
Like, obviously what we talked about, that letter being wrote and stuff like that. So he did it like a really like a sly way. Like, he walked by him and bumped him and dropped a piece of paper, and he was like, oh, Congressman, you dropped something. And he handed it to him.
Mm,
And then the note said, get us out of here.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And he didn't say nothing. He just rolled up the piece of paper, and then they went back and talked about it. Like,
Okay.
look, this is not what's going on right now.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. We had to play our role. We had to smile and clap our hands and go along with it. We were not supposed to have any direct contact with the journalists on our own, says a former member. He knew it was bad, and he rounded up his family and planned their getaway with the crew from America. When the journalists went back to Camp Kiyotama, a little town nearby, a sheriff warned them that people from Jonestown had tried to escape, but had been apprehended and taken back.
That was like a big deal. Going to the Kaituma. I don't know how to say
Yeah.
it. Going back to that, it was like basically just like a little house that didn't really have any coverage. and they all went back after that whole like celebration that they had been a part of and just like talked it over. And that's when they started connecting the dots of like, nah, this is not it. Like something's going on here. They're obviously like distraught. There are people that want to leave. Like we need to do something about it. And that was when they addressed Jim.
Yep. 9 hours before the massacre, the journalist confronted Jim about the notes that were slipped to the journalists. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jones says it's a lie. He says it's a publicity stunt, and he doesn't understand why anyone would say that. 6 hours after that interview, everyone was dead.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wild.
Bad news.
And when we say everyone, we mean everyone was dead.
Everybody.
Everyone was dead. A giant storm came out of nowhere suddenly. I quote, I felt evil itself blow into Jonestown. Whatever is about to happen, this is the beginning of it. At 2:30 p.m., people wanted to leave Jonestown. A reporter, Jackie Spear, got an oral affidavit from 3 people trying to leave. Word spread and people started to show up and try to leave as well.
Which that was really sad to watch. Like the footage of people just like scrambling to get their stuff and get out of there, which I just watched earlier today. There was a family of 8 and a family of 6 that had been a part of the People's Temple for like 14 years and followed him religiously, that packed up their shit and they were like, get us out of here, we're done. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal. And I'm sure to Jim Jones, he was like, damn it.
Yeah.
Like they're taking my people.
Yeah, I mean, because his ego is insane. Like, oof. I mean, he was God.
Yeah.
Like, he was literally God.
Yeah.
And it felt like his people were just leaving him. Mm. Yeah.
They explained it on the documentary I watched. I think it was actually his son, because they went into a lot about his son. Like, they were actually off playing. They started a basketball team, and they were off playing the Guyanese national team. So, like, he ended up missing it all, pretty much. But they talked about what were you just saying?
Him being upset that his people were leaving.
Yeah, he explained it. His son explained it that like his dad knew that it was over at that point, mm-hmm. and that even to the end he almost had the attitude of like, if I'm not gonna win, nobody's gonna win. Yeah. And that's why they ended up pulling the trigger on just like everybody dying.
Yep.
If we can't live happy, then we're gonna die happy. Right. That's what he said.
Which I don't know if these notes get into it or not, but when Jim first got to Guyana, to Jonestown, they did with his close-knit group, they did a rehearsal of this.
Yeah.
That his close-knit group, like his right-hand people, didn't know about. Like, he gave them like a wine as like celebration. And then after everybody drank it, he was like, you guys just drank poison.
It's been poisoned.
It's been poisoned. You guys have 1 hour to live.
Yeah.
And they were like, someone said, okay, we were just calm mm-hmm. about it for the last hour of our life. So he was planning this.
Yeah.
This was like a pre-planned thing.
Yeah.
Okay, from here, the atmosphere got very intense. 15 people were loaded up to leave Jonestown with Congressman Ryan. At 3 p.m., there was a noise from the pavilion as they were leaving. Congressman Ryan came towards the vehicle, blood-stained. Someone had attempted to knife him. Yeah, someone walked right up behind him and said, you're going to die, motherfucker.
Yeah, literally held it to his throat. And he was like, I'm going to kill you right now.
Yeah.
They struggled for the knife, and the dude ended up cutting him. Like, he cut himself trying to grab the knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he got stabbed. Yeah. The stabber got stabbed with his own weapon.
That sounds like a shirt. The stabber got stabbed.
It was the killer's blood on his shirt. It was a very traumatic moment. It was the start of the timeline to everyone's death. Mm. Okay, on November 18th, 1978, at 4:30 p.m. at Port Kiatama Airstrip. They waited around for the plane to show up for them. One came, but there were not enough seats. A second plane was ordered. Everyone was mixed with fear of the unknown and excitement to get out of there. At 5 p.m., a second plane arrived so they can get everyone out. They were nervous that Jones was planning an attack on them in retaliation.
Which he was.
Yes. Back in Jonestown, Jones was furious. It scared everyone. After the congressman left, the atmosphere was somber and sadness. Everyone was shocked that someone tried to murder the congressman. At 5:20 p.m., Jim Jones sends a gunman to the airstrip. They shot at the people trying to leave, which it was multiple gunmen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was
the main guy driving the tractor shot it first, and then all of a sudden, like, people just started coming out of the trailer. Just
it was
going.
an ambush.
Yeah.
Congressman Ryan was shot and killed imminently. Another videographer was killed on site. A reporter was killed. Several reporters and journalists were shot but survived. Many people trying to go back to America were shot and injured as they ran for the jungle surrounding the airstrip to try to seek coverage from the gunmen. Back at Jonestown, everyone was called to the pavilion after the tractor came back from the airstrip. Jones told everyone that the congressman had been killed along with many others that joined him, which there's actual audio of this.
Yes.
Yeah, which I'll play some of this in the video. It's so wild listening to the audio of that day.
Yeah, the airstrip footage is just
Yeah, the
awful.
airstrip footage is awful. The audio, like before the death.
Yeah.
His last audio is crazy too, because it's still like he's trying to make it sound positive.
Like,
That was what was crazy.
We're all doing this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about killing everybody dying
Yeah.
and like trying to make it sound positive.
Mm.
He said, if they can't let us live in peace, we'll make our own peace. Or he worded it some weird way like that. Yeah, bizarre, man.
The way that the journalists talk about how they took coverage was what immediately like gave me chills. And I kind of just was like hooked on learning the rest of it after that, because the way that they described like the sounds and the things that they had witnessed, and the fact that like they were coming back and just like shooting them all again, regardless of if they were dead or not, in like point blank range.
I'm surprised they survived.
Oh my god!
Like some of them survived.
Yeah. Like she said, she looked down and she was like, my knee was gone. Like,
yeah,
wild.
Back at Jonestown, everyone was called to the pavilion after the tractor came back from the airstrip. Jones told everyone that the congressman had been killed along with many others that joined him. November 18th, 1978, which was at nighttime, Port Kiatama airstrip, some people had wandered off into the woods for shelter. 15 people, badly wounded, ended up in the rum shop. They started talking about drinking poison, which is what Jim Jones made them do on white nights in Jonestown. Jim Jones would call his followers into the white night to test them to see who were his true followers. This was essentially the practice of the mass suicide, which his followers basically did blindly and out of loyalty to him. He would give them all a quote-unquote poison drink to test their faithfulness. If they didn't drink the drink, they would be punished. They did this practice often, and it's actually one of the reasons that the press back in the U.S. were concerned about the operations in Jonestown. Jim Jones demanded loyalty. He controlled everything. Yeah, he was a lot. Loyalty was everything to him. There was a story that I heard where he also talked about moving everybody to Russia, right? And to be able to move to Russia, you had to speak Russian. That was like he was trying to teach everyone to speak Russian.
Okay.
So each night when they would go to eat their meals, rice and beans, whatever the fuck it was, he would make them say a couple things in Russian, like tell me 3 words in Russian or say a sentence in Russian. And he has 70, 80, 90-year-old people there too.
Yeah.
They're not going to memorize that shit.
Right.
So if they would go up to get food and they couldn't say a couple words in Russian, he would turn them away. He wouldn't let them eat.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, wouldn't let them eat.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's that
I did not know that.
like power tripping
Yeah.
crazy shit, dude. He's insane. 7 p.m. in Jonestown, the pavilion was heavily guarded. Jones was in a heated debate with some of his followers. Unknown as to why, he told his people if they can't live in peace, they will die in peace. That's what he said.
Yeah.
If we can't live in peace, we'll die in peace. And the way he says that,
Ooh.
they will die in peace. Like,
Yeah, he like dragged. You could tell he was doing something because he was
fucked.
slurring and dragging his words and
They
stuff.
talked about that a lot. Like even when they were interviewing him on camera, they said like his words were all slurred.
Yeah, there's a real famous interview of him during when all that stuff was going on, where he's got like a red shirt on. He was just slurred. You can just tell he was fucked. His plan was to poison everyone with a real life white knight. It was not worth going back to the States because there would be more congressmen and more disrupt. In a final snub to the USA, Jim Jones donated all of his cult's money to the Soviet Union.
That's insane. Bro.
I didn't know that.
Me neither.
He sent Tim Carter to the Soviet embassy in Georgetown with 3 suitcases filled with cash, which Tim Carter has a horribly sad story.
Oh my gosh, I can't
His
even
story
look at him
is
without
so
crying.
sad
Oh,
about his wife.
yes, it's awful.
Yeah.
It is awful.
Jim Jones then began to tell everyone to stop their hysterics and die with dignity as they were poisoned and murdered. There is one survivor left from the massacre to this day, which is Tim Carter.
Yeah. That's just his little story. Like, when everything came about and everybody was being told they were going to be poisoned and stuff, people just kind of like fell in line. There were some people that were going against it, but for the most part, it sounded like everybody just kind of like lined up and took it. So his son, Malcolm, was poisoned because the kids went first.
Yeah.
So Malcolm was poisoned and he died in Tim's wife. I don't remember her name. I should know her name, but I don't
Yeah, I
remember.
know. Yeah.
But yeah, the kid died in his wife's arms, and then he finally found her in like all of the chaos, and she was like
Holding the kid.
hysterical.
Foam was coming from his mouth.
Yeah, and then she passed away in Tim's arms just like a couple minutes later because she had taken it right after Malcolm.
Yeah, the only reason he was a part of the People's Temple was because he was a soldier in the Vietnam War. He was a Marine, and he was fucking fed up with the government. So he came back a hippie, and he was all about peace and shit. And he found the People's Temple, and he thought this was for them, and this happened, and it was so bad.
It's so awful to hear him tell that story.
Yeah, I'll play a couple interviews with Tim Carter, dude. It's so sad.
There was a guy that they really like. He was one of the main people they interviewed. He survived it all. He was one of the guys that was one of the defectors going back to the plane. He actually left his son there. His like 4-year-old son left him there. Yeah, and like the dude's alive. I don't know if he's alive still, but he was. He ended up living in Hawaii and was like a police officer, and they were interviewing him, and he was just like talking about how he regrets it every single day. It's like all he ever thinks about is like how he left his son there, and if he could take it back, he would.
There's one guy that I listened to talk, and he had 9 family members there. He had a wife, a brother, a sister, a grandma, a grandpa. They all died.
Like cousin, sister-in-law.
Yeah,
he had like everybody from the list.
Yeah, like his sister was like, just lay me, after they took the poison, she was like, just lay me beside grandma. Like, and he's alive telling these stories.
What do you mean?
It's crazy.
Like,
yeah.
Dude.
The documentary that I just watched about the women's side of this was actually pretty interesting. It was a take I didn't think about because when you talk about Jim Jones, it's mostly just like Jim Jones, like fuck him, he's awful.
He's crazy.
But to hear how involved the women were in this, like his wife, what's her name? Marcella or something like that. I don't remember. They called her Marcy. She's the one that like lined everybody up. Like she was like, and you can hear her on the tape. Everybody come over here and get in the line, and you guys wait over here. Bring the children first. Like,
so she's just as gone as he is.
Yeah, she was like the children, like, and you can hear kids just like screaming in the background, and she's like, they're not hurt. It's not hurting them. It just tastes bad. She was like, the older kids can comfort the little ones until their time comes and they're gone. And like she's full on like in it with these 3 other women. And in the documentary, they were saying like Jim Jones couldn't have done this all by himself because he was too fucked in his own head to like pull it all together. That's not to say he wasn't like the mastermind behind it, but like his women,
he definitely had help.
They were the minions in it. Yeah, like they pulled everybody together. They made sure like the rations of the poison versus the flavor aid were right so that people were dying.
Yeah, and then as they were doing that, the pavilion was circled with gunmen.
Yeah.
Like they had people
and
just
bow and arrow. If you didn't do it, you were going to die anyways. Yeah. So
yeah, the audio of hearing the kids in the background fucks with me, man.
It makes me cry.
Yeah, I can't.
It's awful.
Yeah, November 19th, 1978. 6 a.m., the Guyana Army came to secure the Strip. The survivors from the gunman attack were saved and moved to Georgetown. A U.S. Air Force aircraft was waiting to transport them back to the States.
Which that was like a cold chill moment for me.
Yeah.
When they were saying, like, when they pulled up and they saw the big, white, beautiful U.S. plane waiting to take them back.
Yeah. The U.S. State Department responds to the murder of Congressman Leo Ryan and the rumors of the ongoing massacre. The U.S. Armed Forces fly to Guyana to establish the scale of the massacre and to locate Jim Jones. Along with the U.S. Armed Forces, one journalist was granted permission to enter Jonestown, who was Charles Cross, reporter for the Washington Post. He was also part of the crew that had originally went to Jonestown for the first time. He was shot on the airstrip and fled to the rum room. As the plane flew in to assess the situation, hundreds of dead bodies were scattered on the property near the main pavilion.
You gotta put a picture into that because that shit's, you don't believe it until you see it.
It reminded me almost of like a tornado going through a town, or like aftermath of like a hurricane.
Like it looked like brush, like debris,
like a bunch of bodies,
and it's just
like,
all bodies.
Like fake dummy people were just like stacked up with clothing on, but those were like real people. Oh,
can you imagine pulling up to that?
No.
Hell no, man.
They said it looked like confetti was sprinkled on the ground.
Yeah.
As you got closer, it was just hundreds of shirts and dresses on humans that were laying dead on the ground. As they started to assess the damage and count casualties, they found a table and it was covered in empty cups and syringes. A 55-gallon drum was beside the table, had been cut in half and used to mix up cyanide and Kool-Aid to poison the people, which it was, what we say it was Flavor Aid. Which, crazy fact, I think there's a museum in Georgia, maybe Georgia, I'm pretty sure, that is dedicated to this tragedy, that they have Flavor Aid from that,
like the original
packaging. You can
I
go.
wonder how Flavor Aid did after that.
Yeah, you can go look at that shit.
They're fucked for sure.
Flavor Aid
went out of
from
business
the
the next
actual.
week.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's probably why they don't say Kool-Aid specifically, because Kool-Aid, it's like,
Yeah. Do not.
It wasn't me.
Yeah. Potassium cyanide laboratory chemical poisoning bottles were scattered everywhere.
Which the women were the ones that, like, basically used Jim's power to order that. I don't even think that he had, like, a super big amount of involvement in ordering it. Which I didn't know. Like, that's stuff that you just don't, like, until you start to nitpick at it.
I guess I never thought about looking at it from, like, the Minions point of view.
Yeah. It's whack.
Well, I mean, think of the dude's fucked up all the time. Somebody's orchestrating all this shit, and they're just that they could have been feeding him the order.
They're just as coked up on drugs as he was. Yeah. Jim Jones was found beside his quote unquote throne, shot in the head. Near him was a large wooden crate that was full of tapes and recordings, which I'll be playing those throughout this episode. That box was recovered for evidence. Only 450 people were accounted for by the U.S. Army, meaning that 500 people were still missing. They assumed that the 500 people had fled into the jungle or elsewhere to get away from the massacre that was happening. The word spread and people started to demand answers about the massacre. While the search for survivors continued, 200 U.S. soldiers were flown in to retrieve the dead. Many bodies were found in their homes and even in their beds.
Yeah, that was whack.
I would like to listen to an interview of a soldier.
Yeah.
Talk about his experience that day.
Yeah.
Many mothers and guardians died with children tucked in their arms. Children were also poisoned. Among rescue and recovery, they discovered that a lot of people had been stabbed in the back of the neck and the spinal cord with a syringe. Many people were killed. Yeah. Many people were killed. There was clear evidence that they had been held down and killed. They did not willingly commit suicide. Yeah. As things continued to happen in the area of the massacre, survivors began to emerge from the jungle. 30 adults and 6 children. Among them was Tim Carter.
Ooh, that gave me chills too. He just comes walking out. Oh,
shit's terrible.
It is. And they realized as they started going through, like, the casualties, that there were bodies just, like, stacked on top of each other. So they started, like, the death toll started going up when they started removing people, and people just kept coming from that one spot. Yeah. They didn't initially know that was happening, which the decay that they were talking about from those people, I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, that'd be horrible. Like you said, the army walking up to that scene, I mean, it was probably just
awful.
Yeah, and you also have to think this is also during, like, on the ass end of Vietnam and shit like that. They had already been through Vietnam. Fucking insane, dude. The publicity was huge for the survivors. It was all so much at once, and it was overwhelming for them to tell their stories. As the People's Temple survivors were flown back to the JFK airport, they were frightened again. The publicity was huge. No one had compassion. People thought the survivors deserved all of it because they had chosen to be there with Jim Jones. Jim Jones truly believed that the world did not exist beyond him. The temple did not exist beyond him. He was a horrible leader and a person who led nearly 1,000 people to their death in a jungle, a massacre in Guyana. The victims of the massacre are buried in a mass grave in Oakland, California. 153 men, 452 women, 302 children, and 2 unidentified. 913 bodies were flown to the U.S. military airlifts out of Guyana.
Jesus.
Yeah.
302 kids, dude.
Yeah.
The Jonestown Massacre was known as the largest mass suicide in American history. It is now recognized as a mass murder.
Yep.
Random facts to remember. Georgetown had a home base for the People's Choice, which included Jim Jones' son, Stephen. There were 46 others with him. He was detained and questioned. Yeah, that you talked about. They were off playing ball and shit. Stephen hated his father. He was the only biological child that his parents had. He had 3 adopted siblings. His outrage against his father was public. Many followers knew he did not like his dad, and that made his dad even more mad. A group of 11 people had planned to escape and walk over 30 miles to the next town before any of the events that happened took place. The congressman being there was enough of a distraction that they were able to escape without being caught.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I had to just throw it in there because when she came up on the screen, it said that like she was one of those survivors from the night, but she wasn't actually there like when everything started happening. Yeah. She was just there to explain like she had strapped her kid to her back with a sheet and left with a group of like 9 other people, and their goal and the plan was to escape anyways. So when the congressman showed up, everybody was so like hysteric and making sure that they were safe, and they were trying to get out of there, that it was enough of a distraction that they were able to make it all the way to Georgetown. And then they found out that everybody was dead. And she was like, it is the craziest thing to look back on that night that we escaped and know that just 24 hours later, or however long it was later, that everybody was dead. And she's still alive to tell her story about what it was like in Jonestown today. I don't remember her name, but
yeah, there's obviously a lot more to Jim Jones as far as like his early life and lead up to Jonestown and stuff like that. But we would be here for
oh my gosh,
5 hours.
There's what a story to unpack.
We would be here for so long.
Yeah.
But this was pretty much explaining, the tragedy that happened in Jonestown, and cults.
Yeah.
Are cults for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, don't join a fucking cult.
No.
Like,
probably not.
Yeah, do not join a cult.
Yeah.
You said that they're actually coming out with a movie.
Yes. Word is Leonardo DiCaprio is playing Jim Jones,
which will be insane
in a movie.
Yeah.
God, dude.
I'll be.
It's gonna be. I've watched a movie. There's a movie called Jonestown, and it was hard to watch that knowing what happens.
Yeah.
And like watching this is gonna make me so mad at Leo. Dude. It's gonna be so bad.
I'm excited to watch it though.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was.
I bet it'll be good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really good.
Him playing a role.
Gotta be big budget.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got for today.
Oh, yeah.
A sad story. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Be a friend. Tell a friend.
Do all that.
Yeah. See you guys.
See ya.